Welcome back, everybody. This will be an interesting video. I wasn't expecting this to happen to us, but what happened was um, it was the morning, early morning. We're boondocking. We have water in our freshwater tank, so we're using our water pump here instead of being hooked up to shore power and city water. And so in the morning, turn on the pump because we leave it off at night. We leave it off during the day when we aren't using it. There's a switch inside the trailer. So we have it off, turned it on, and went in the bathroom to use the bathroom. And then used the bathroom, left the pump on. A half hour later, went in the bathroom again, and there was water on the floor. So I came into this storage compartment here to see what was going on because it seemed like the water was coming from that direction. Found water down here and up above leaking here out of a seal. And I'm like, why is this seal gone bad? I've never really seen any videos of anybody posting or heard of this happening before. So I started thinking, okay, maybe when we chlorinate our system, which is once a year, we use about a quarter cup for every 15-20 gallons of fresh water. We put it in our fresh water tank and flush it through the system and let it sit in the system overnight. Then the next day we drain the tank and then run fresh water through our system. So chlorine is not sitting in there in a high concentrate in the pump for the seals. So now I'm like, okay, this thing is leaking. Either I need to replace gaskets here or this front assembly or the whole assembly. So I decided what I did was I ordered a brand new pump. And so the pump, the whole assembly cost here is double the cost as if I just bought the front. So I decided I'm just going to buy the whole thing, and then I'm going to have extra parts if I need them in the future. And it's pretty easy to change out. There's only 4 screws holding it down. Take these off, cut a couple wires, and re-splice them. So this compartment here is on our trailer has a water heater here, and then we have a water filter, onboard water filter. So what I was able to do was capture when this happened when we were at the campsite. And right now I'm at home to do this repair to replace this pump. But you'll see, I'm going to share this video with you that I made when it was actually happening so you could see where it was leaking and how much was coming out. And it really surprised me. I'm glad it was the last day of our camping trip, so it didn't absolutely ruin everything. But I was able to make it stop by turning off the pump, the power to the pump, and then draining the power, not the power, but the water pressure off of the pump by opening faucets, and the water leak immediately stopped. I took and dried everything up in here inside, ran heaters, and then when I got home, I ran a dehumidifier in the compartment here to suck up any moisture that could be in here. So I don't think there's any damage or anything. I went around hitting everything. It's all nice and solid. I don't see any mold growth. It's been a few days now. I've received the new pump, so I'm going to go ahead and replace it. It should be pretty easy to do. So now you're going to see, I'm going to post here the video of when it just happened to me where it was leaking, and then you'll be able to see where it was leaking onto the seal of the top. So you have an idea, and then we'll get into taking this pump out and replacing it. I noticed water coming out of the top of the pump here. It looks like out of the seal area right there. It's not coming off any fittings anywhere, and then you can see it. It's leaking too out of the bottom. I think there's seals underneath here, and it's coming out pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead, and we get home. Right now we're camping. I'm going to pull the pump out and see if they have a rebuild kit for the seals, or I'll just buy a new pump. So that's not good. I don't like this, and I don't like that it comes over here, this hole here. And I think some water's going down here, possibly in the flooring, but I'm glad we caught it early. You can see it leaking through the seal right here. I just wiped it off, and just to show you, it's coming from the seal. So I went inside the trailer, the water pump is off, and I opened the faucets to relieve the pressure going through the pump, and that immediately stopped the leak. So it's no longer leaking down here either. So that stopped that. So let's get this party started, and we'll remove the pump. And here's the new pump. It came with instructions, and then I'll put them side by side so we can take a look at them after I get this one out. Before I remove the pump, I want to make sure I'm not hooked up to city water, and I've got the water pump turned off, and I'm going to take the low point drains and open them to drain the water out, so I don't have water come out where the pump is. So the low point drains will drain. I'll do the hot water, and I'll wait until these are done to disconnect the water lines from the pump. And after the low point drains are drained and the water pump power is turned off, I'm going to make sure that before I cut these wires that go to the pump, there's a live power wire here with a 10 amp fuse. I'm going to pull this fuse out. It just pulls out of this assembly to make sure the power is off to the pump for sure before I go and cut these wires. Now that the wires are disconnected, I'm going to go ahead and unscrew this off. I have one here, one on the other side. So I've got the two hose fittings taken apart, one right here, and you can see one back in there. And then I've taken the 4 Robert's head screws out where it was bolted to the floor. A while ago, I took this rubber pad, put it underneath here, and then I looped it around so it's underneath the pump to help quiet the pump from making so much noise, and it helped. The pump is out. Now you can see the pump out side by side with the new one right here. Here's the old one. You can see here how this motor is kind of sloped down slightly where this one is straight across. It looks like they have a little better quality rubber base here on the new one compared to the old one. Here's the two pumps and motors from the front side here. So they're identical, so I just want to make sure they look exactly the same. I'll be taking this filter off the old one and putting it on here. Going over here, I learned something. Here's a model number. It's a 4008-101-A65, and that's what I purchased. What I did learn, and the manufacturer, I asked them the question because I was seeing an E65 model. So I'll put right down below here what the manufacturer said about it. So what they said was that A65 is what is somebody purchases them in bulk, and they come in a big box, and then they ship them off in a box like this. The E65 model is the exact same pump. The only thing is it's sold individually, so you might get it in a nice pretty box, and that might cost you another $15. So I bought the A65 model to save some money. So the only difference is the box. I've removed this filter, just took it off by hand. It says right here, hand tighten only. And then it goes right here. And there's a gasket in there, a special gasket. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on here on the pipe threads by hand. So I have this filter screwed on. So just so you know, it's important you don't use Teflon tape on here. There's no reason to. You have that nice gasket. I was able to turn this filter all the way up here. It doesn't matter if this filter is pointed up, down, sideways, it still works the same. So while we got this out, we might as well check this filter. It's hand tight. And then inside here, you can see it might look clean, but there's a little buildup of stuff inside there. So I'm going to take and wash that out prior to putting it back in. And then I could see here, I don't know if you can see it. See that little piece of metal there on the gasket? It's probably from part of the filter. So if I wash that, I'm going to make sure that little piece of metal isn't there on the gasket or I won't get a good seal. So you can see a little bit of debris down there inside there that I'm going to get cleaned out. And then you just put it back on hand tight. Hey, before I wash this, I want to show you, I got this filter out. I want to show you the debris in there that you couldn't really see before. So you could see that piece of metal too that was against the gasket. I'm going to go ahead and cut that off and get this nice and cleaned up and put it back on there. And this, with this being pointed up like this, I don't know if I mentioned this, it'll be easier for me to get in here and remove this to get to it to clean it out later in the future rather than being pointed down. I got this all washed out. The screen looks much cleaner. It was a little bit more plugged than I thought it was. I cleaned the gasket all up. So it turned out pretty nice. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back on, but I want to let you know I cleaned all this too. Wiped it all, got it nice and clean before I put this back on. We're going to put this back on hand tight. Do not crank on it with pliers or you'll be regretting it. If you try and use these, you're going to break it. So it'll seal with that gasket like that. So we're ready to put this pump back in. I have the pump sitting in here in place. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take and screw these screws down into the floor. And I've measured the thickness of the floor to make sure that these screws, the new screws I'm using, aren't going to go all the way through the floor and underneath the trailer. So those, I'm going to do those. Then I'm going to reconnect these wires here using a end cap. So I'll put the wires in it and then crimp it tight on both this one and the positive. And then I'll put the fuse back in. And then over here, I'm going to go ahead and reconnect the hose. I'll get back to you in a few minutes. I've got everything buttoned up here. I have the hoses zip tied up and some wires zip tied, my connectors on, everything together. So now all I have to do is run some water into the pump and make sure there are no leaks. I've got water running through the pump here. I got the pump on and I got the faucet turned on inside the trailer, the kitchen faucet. I've looked, there's no leaks at any of my fittings here that I put it back together or the filter here. And you can see here how I put this in the upward position, how it's better and it's easier for me to get off to check later. So everything's buttoned up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut the faucet inside the trailer, let the pressure build up in here, and then leave the pump on, and then make sure I have no leaks. I'll leave it overnight and check to make sure that no leaks have come out of here. I don't want any leaks, so I'll see you tomorrow. Well, it's the next day, and there are no water leaks. So all night I've left this motor energized and water to the pump, and everything is nice and dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep an eye on this for the next few camping trips and watch for any leaks, make sure I don't get any leaks out of any of these fittings. And then from traveling, there'll be some shaking around, so I want to make sure that everything is nice and tight and there are no water leaks. I don't want any water damage in the trailer. Here's a quick tip for you. If you're in your trailer, you can usually hear the water pump when it comes on and off. And so if you ever have it where you're not using any water in the trailer, no water through the faucets or anything, and you hear the pump cycling on and off, there's a possibility that you have a water leak. So go ahead and walk around your trailer, check in the pump area, check by your water filter, check if you have an onboard water filter underneath your sinks to see if there's any water leaks, because you want to catch a water leak early so you don't cause any damage to your trailer. So, or there's an adjustment on the side of this pump that you don't want to touch unless you watch a video that I'm posting in the description below. I found a video of a man that talks about this, how to adjust this pump, how to troubleshoot it, a lot of information on it. So I'm going to put that in the description, a link to that video in the description below so you can take a look at it. And I highly recommend you watch it. So if you like this video, I hope you give it a thumbs up, and feel free to comment. I like to see comments or receive questions. I do my best to answer. If I don't answer right away, that's because I'm out camping. Also, if you like this video, feel free to share it with other people that might be helpful too. And if you'd really like to do it, if you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe tab and the bell icon to be notified of future videos. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care and happy camping.